Ladies and gentlemen, this is the Bama Standard, and we are brought to you as always by Workspace Solutions and Michael Petyak of Oakmont Financial Partners. I am your host of the Bama Standard, Justin Riley. With me, as always, is All-SEC linebacker Marvin Constant, senior analyst of Touchdown Alabama Magazine, Stephen M. Smith, and a man that has won 2 national championships, and had he not been hurt, we would have won 3. Mr. Bo Scarborough. What's going on, fellas?
What's going on?
We good. We good. Wish basketball would have won, but we good.
I think we're all kind of a little upset about that. But for our viewing audience, we typically come on Tuesday nights, but today is a special day. As many of you know, Coach Gene Stallings' birthday was yesterday. He turned a young 87 years old. And today we have a special guest who recently spent the day with him. And he's going to talk about the time that he spent with Coach Stallings and some great stories that you may not have heard before. To properly introduce him, I'm going to turn the mic over to one of the greatest hype men in the game, Mr. Stephen M. Smith.
Well, I mean, when you talk about the guests we have on, this is one of the most esteemed people in the business. And I say esteemed with the highest level of respect because he's been featured in Fox News. I mean, he's been featured in CNN. I mean, this guy's got pipe smoking with the New York Post. I mean, this guy's been on BBC. I mean, he's been all over the map, all over the world, to the moon and back. And we're talking about one of the greatest fighters of the Christian culture as well. So we give it a steamed welcome in here to Mr. Larry Taunton in the building. Hooray!
Welcome in, sir.
Hey guys, it's great. It's great to be with you. Always great to be with a bunch of Alabama fans.
Now
I'm not an Alabama fan. Let's just clear that up. I'm just here for the free tips.
Well, you met with a lot of very important people. Now you get to spend time with us. So I hope that you said a little prayer before you came on because you haven't experienced anything like us just yet. But we're going to have a lot of fun today.
Well, I have to tell you guys, this is one of my favorite topics, and it's a joy for me to be discussing it because so much of my time is spent discussing things that are not pleasant. So I'm looking forward to this.
I understand. Well, you traveled the world to provide the substance behind your book around the world in more than 80 days. You've studied various cultures and met with notable people. But is there anything greater than experiencing the Alabama football culture?
I have to say there's very little else that is as joyful and as pleasant as that. And something you guys would find very interesting is, of course, soccer, bullfighting. There are a great many other sports around the world that are enjoyed with a great deal of enthusiasm by people around the world. But I still maintain that the college football, not the professional football, but the college football environment is unparalleled by anything sporting-wise that I've encountered in the world. And in part because college football fans are friendly. They are a real outgoing type of people. My boys and I in recent years have started going to iconic stadiums around the country. I've been writing a little bit about that. So we went to Notre Dame. We went to Ohio State. And we have plans to go out to USC.
Excuse me. Sorry to interrupt. But clearly you have not gone to Baton Rouge with an Alabama shirt on if you think those fans are friendly and pleasant.
Actually, I have been to Baton Rouge just a couple of times, and I would agree with you in your assessment. You want to get a rental car because somebody might key your car down there.
We were pelted
generally speaking, college football fans are a friendly people.
What was that, Marvin?
I said we were pelted with Jim Beam bottles going into the tunnel one time.
Hold on, Marvin. You mean the big Jim Beam bottles?
Whatever they could get in the stadium at the time.
Bo, what's your assessment of that take?
Man, we had popcorn thrown at us all the time, every time.
Just popcorn? That's
Well,
it?
all
You
I
may
can
see
say is,
you may see a butterfly now every now and again just out the air.
Gotcha. Well, let's get right into it. You sparked my interest yesterday when you said that you had several great stories when you spent the entire day with Coach Stallings. Of course, he's one of the most celebrated legends in Alabama history, and he's probably one of the most beloved, most cherished. What brought that opportunity about where you were able to spend the entire day with him, and what was that like?
some years ago, Coach Stallings had served as a speaker at one of our major events. I'd asked him to come, and he very graciously did come. And I had a very good rapport with him. We did a golf tournament, so I spent the day riding around in a golf tournament, in a golf cart with him. And Justin, it was like I was getting into the CIA files. I was getting access and answers to all kinds of questions that I had. But when he left, he had given me his cell number, and he said, "If you ever need me, call me." Well, a decade went by, and I never did. And so last fall, I called him up and I said, "Hey, Coach Stallings, I'm going to be out in the Dallas area. I thought I'd stop in and say hello." He said, "Come on." And so I did, and it was a lot of fun, I have to tell you.
I can only imagine. One thing I have to bring up, the common theme with Coach Bryant, Coach Stallings, and now Nick Saban is how hard and hard-nosed they are on their players, but also an incredible love that they have for their players. Did this seem evident to you when y'all were talking?
Yes, Coach Stallings, I think, maintains a very real affection for his players, both at Alabama, Texas A&M, elsewhere. I think he is someone who wanted the best for his players, and that meant, particularly of his generation, that they get an education, that they graduate, they get a degree. And Coach Stallings is also a firm believer, like Coach Saban, in second and third chances, and really trying to help young men flourish into to find successful husbands, fathers, civic leaders.
Right. Bo, hearing that about Coach Stallings and Coach Saban, was that the experience that you got while during your time in Tuscaloosa?
Oh yeah, it was. Especially when Coach Saban first came to Tuscaloosa, the city, everybody praised him, expecting him to come in and win, and that's what he did, and that's what he been doing since day one, and he promised everybody, more than one or two national championships, and to that's why they call it built by Bama. Coach Saban, and Gene Stallings and Bear Bryant, they built the legacy at Alabama, and that's why, that's where the legends are made, and that's where the legends come from, and everybody there is a legend for as students and athletes.
Yeah, without a doubt. Marvin, when you were being recruited early on, did Coach Stallings get a chance? Did he stop by your house before you came to Alabama, or was that a little bit later?
No, when he actually retired, Dubose took over. So I actually was one of Dubose's second recruiting class. So yeah, had I been out a year or two earlier, probably would have happened.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if during your prolific play, if he started recruiting you a little bit earlier than Coach DeBose took the realm. So I had to ask that question.
Well, I got my first offer from Alabama as a sophomore. He was still the coach at the time, so.
As a sophomore.
A sophomore.
Yeah.
He was in middle school.
Yeah, no, my 10th grade year is when I got the bulk of my offers. My 10th grade year,
wow.
Yeah.
How many tackles you had that year, Marvin?
Man, I don't remember, but I was an all-state player on both sides of the ball. So, it was easy. You know, when it came down to it, I had over 50 scholarship offers. So, you know, you do the work, you get the respect.
Yeah, that's true, without a doubt. Now, Gene told you stories about Coach Bryant, Tom Landry, Joe Namath, and I'm sure a lot more. Out of those stories, what would you say your favorite is? Can you open up with that one?
Boy, you know, there were so many that were so funny, but I'll have to tell you one that really sticks with me that I thought was very funny. He was talking about I believe it was the '68 Cotton Bowl, where he was the head coach at Texas A&M, and you know that famed picture of Bryant, you know, lifting, you know, Stallings up. It was after that game, but anyway, he said that during that game. That Bryant made an error, and he said he pulled out his quarterback on third down, thinking it was fourth down. And he said,
Wow.
so we pulled out a defensive back and put a punt returner in. And he said, I could see across the field assistants running down to Coach Bryant to tell him it's only third down. He said, so Bryant, realizing that he had made a mistake, he pulled the punter out and put the quarterback back in. And he said, so we pulled the punt returner out and put the defensive back in. And he said, a referee threw a flag and said, illegal substitution. You can't do that. And he said, so I'm shouting at the referee, what do you mean I can't do that? 68,000 people just saw Coach Bryant do it. And he said the Texas official turned to him and said, you ain't Coach Bryant. And he said following that game, he said, you know, we won the game, and he said Bryant met him at midfield, congratulated him, you know, hugged him, lifted him up, and he said, and I'm thinking to myself, we're finally turning the corner at Texas A&M. He said it had been very hard. And we're finally turning the corner. We're going to finally become a real power. And he said in those days, the press did the interviews. The press conferences took place in the locker rooms. And he said, so I'm in my locker room giving the interview, and it's my moment. You know, we just beat Alabama. And he said suddenly reporters start bleeding away from, you know, my interview. And and heading in another direction. And he said, I look, and here comes Bryant coming down the tunnel into our locker room. And he said, all the reporters flock over to Coach Bryant. And he said, and Bryant, you know, came and congratulated me and our players for the victory. He said it was a very gracious thing for him to do, something you would never see today. And he said, but the next day, I can't wait for the headline in the Dallas Morning News to proclaim, you know, Texas A&M, you know, beats Alabama. And he said, do you know what the headline was? He said the headline read, Bryant, great in defeat. He said,
wow.
even at the
You can't
peak of
win.
our success,
You can't win.
He said, even at the peak of our success, he said the headlines were about how great Coach Bryant and Alabama were. It was very funny.
It's funny you bring up that victory. You know, one of his assistants finally toppled him, but this season, the same thing essentially happened to Nick Saban. You had Jimbo Fisher get the best of him down in College Station, and then Kirby Smart, of course, the national championship game. Out of those two games, which one of those would you say resembles Gene Stallings beating Coach Bryant the most?
Gosh, that's a great question. I think it would probably have to be Kirby Smart's victory. I felt like the Texas A&M game, just my own opinion, felt a little fluky. I think Alabama wins that game probably 9 times out of 10. It was a very exciting game. Texas A&M deservedly won it. Their quarterback played his mind out in that game, never repeated it at any other point during the season, and of course is now transferring. Yeah. Well, yes, just like that 2010 game where Garcia could not miss, and his receivers were like Velcro. Everything he threw at them, just stuck. But Kirby Smart has built an honest to goodness national power, and he's going to be there for a while. It remains to be seen if Jimbo Fisher is truly building a national power at Texas A&M. Because he hasn't won much there yet. But Kirby had already won an SEC championship. Now he has a national title to go to his name. A very, very long time assistant of Saban. So I think you probably have to go with that.
Stephen M. Smith, what's your opinion on that? You spent a lot of time dissecting the program and covering it from every perspective. What do you think?
I agree with Larry on this one. I think Kirby Smart felt more like it just due to he spent 9 years under Coach Saban. Think about that. From 2007 to 2015, all Kirby knew was Saban in that Bama program. I mean, Kirby came in there young, and grew with Coach Saban and grew with that program. So when he finally left to go to Georgia, it became, this was my teacher for 9 years. Is there a way? Is there something I can take? Is there something that I can glean that's going to help me down the road? I mean, yes, Jimbo Fisher spent time with Saban too at LSU and at Miami with the Dolphins, but Kirby spent almost 10 years. So it was like finally getting over that Berlin Wall, so to speak, when you've been taught so long by this guy, and then you finally get a chance to beat him, and you beat him. It's jumping over the Berlin Wall. It's kind of like, remember Bear Bryant and Pat Dye? When Pat Dye finally beat Bear Bryant, it was like over that Berlin Wall.
Yeah, that's a very good analogy, I think.
Yeah. What were you going to say, Bo?
I mean, I thought Kirby would Coach Saban longer than that, huh?
It was 9. Yeah, it was 9 years.
I wasn't with Miami.
And Pat Dye was with Bryant for 9 years.
Well, judging by the sound I just heard in our guest room, our celebrated co-host, comedy legend Steve Brown, is in the building. What's up, buddy?
What's up, man? I miss you guys. How y'all doing?
They finally let you out the reformatory. Okay.
I don't have time for all these insults. How you got? How you doing, white guy? I don't know. How are you?
I assume you're referring to Justin Riley.
I am. I hadn't seen him in a minute. Yeah,
it's been a long time. He missed a couple of family reunions.
Oh, there it is. Hey, man. So what is this? We got another member in the family. So that means we trying to do this racial thing and break the race gap. We're gonna have 3 white guys and 3 black guys. That's what's up, man. I've always been about racial equality. That's what's up. That's what's happening.
Hey guys, I'm just here as a part of your affirmative action.
That's what it is. That's what I need. We need one more white guy. We'll be out the red. That's what
Hey, Steve, your boy B-Rob spoke today, man.
He did?
At the Combine.
Mm-hmm.
That's what's up, man. That's what's up.
Spoke about how much he valued.
Tomorrow.
I'm happy to hear this, man. I'm happy to hear
What
this.
do you do, Steve?
He spoke at the Combine today. He was talking about Derrick Henry and all the guys that come from Bama, but he's supposed to run tomorrow.
He didn't mention Bo. Man, what is?
Well, it's
He
funny
mentioned
you
Bo.
say.
He mentioned Bo.
But you know what? I noticed all the linebackers that speak at the Combine never mention you, Marvin. Listen,
Well, Bo, it's funny that he said that, because one of the things that he did talk about was waiting his turn and not going to the transfer portal. And it's like he echoed word for word what you've said to us, week in and week out in your show about honoring your commitment. You signed with the University of Alabama. You weren't going anywhere. You were going to take your position. And it's like he took what you said and just kind of stitched it on his heart. And that's what he talked about today.
real men do real things. That's right.
Yeah,
Right.
that's what's up. I'm proud.
Yeah. So we mentioned Joe Namath. He was basically our version of Ric Flair. I know you have a story from Gene Stallings about Joe Namath. So you definitely got to let us know about that.
Yeah, well, one of the stories he told about Namath, which was one he had not told me before. Some stories, they get repeated, and I love hearing them every time. But this was one that I hadn't heard. And what's funny, guys, is here I am at his 600 plus acre ranch in Texas, and he wanted to show me around. So we got in his side by side, a UTV, and we're kind of, bouncing along over the prairies and opening and closing cattle gates and, this kind of thing. And he's 86 years old at the time. He just had his birthday. So this is just a few months ago. And, but the guy's still very active. I mean, he's out there punching cattle. He's out there, he's out there still, still working. And, but when he wanted to say something serious, he would come to, he would stop this little side by side and shut off the engine and then turn to me, so it's total silence. And I am asking him, a little bit about Namath, and he tells me a funny story about being in a golf tournament years ago. This must have been, I'm going to guess this was in the 60s. And he said it was him and Coach Bryant against Namath and Steve Sloan in some kind of fundraiser, televised golf tournament. And he said that, that Namath at this point, had plenty of money. But he said Steve Sloan did not. He said Steve Sloan, was not wealthy. And he said Coach Bryant loved to gamble. And so there's a side bet per hole, as they go along. And he says that as we're going along, the money is really starting to accumulate, and Coach Bryant and I are winning. And he says that, Namath is able to write the check, but he says Steve Sloan comes to me and says, Coach Stallings, I don't have this kind of money. I can't pay this. He said, listen, I don't want your money. He said, but don't tell Coach Bryant that I didn't take your money. It'll make you mad. He said, it'll make you mad. So as far as he's concerned, you paid me, okay? He said, yes, sir. He said, well, about a year later, he says, Coach Bryant's book comes out. Oh, boy. And I'm reading it, and I read this story in the book, except it's flipped. He said, it's Coach Bryant telling Steve Sloan not to tell me that he wasn't going to take his money. He said, so I go into Coach Bryant's office, and I say, Coach Bryant, this story in here, this isn't right. This is not the way this went. It was Steve Sloan that wasn't going to, I didn't take his money. I told him not to tell you. He said, Coach Bryant leaned back, put his hands behind his head, and said, whose book is it, Beebs? Yours or mine?
Man.
Speaking of punching cattle, Bo, they still do that out there in Greene County?
Probably do. Probably do. More likely.
Do you have to do that?
I got to tell you one. I got to tell you one about Namath, though. There's a little bit more about Namath. Can I do that?
Oh, absolutely.
He said that the most intense week of his life was when he made the decision to suspend Joe Namath for drinking. He said in those days the players couldn't be seen drinking, and he said Namath was out in some convertible with girls and was seen with with a beer in his hand or something like that. And he said, and I was an assistant coach. And he said, I was an assistant coach, and I made the decision to suspend him. Now, he said, I should have talked to Bryant first, but I made the decision to suspend him. And I told I guess this was back when they had athletic dormitories. He said, I told the food service manager that Joe was not allowed to eat in the dining hall. He's not allowed to eat in the dining hall. He said, so the next thing I hear is the food service manager tells me, Namath says he's going to transfer because you've suspended him and you're not going to let him eat. And he said, and I started to panic because I thought, we can't have our star player transferring somewhere else. And I realized I'm probably going to be in hot water with Coach with Coach Bryant, because I'm the one who made that decision, not Bryant himself. And he said, so I finally went to the food service manager, and he said, I said to the food service manager, now, Joe is not allowed to eat in here. He said, but do tell him that that he can get a little bit of food and he can eat somewhere else.
Wow.
Now, a lot of fans and players will say that as far as personalities go, Gene Stallings was about as close as you can get to Coach Bryant. You know, based on the time you spent with him, would you say that assessment's true?
Well, I have to say I never met Coach Bryant, so my impressions of Bryant are all just from video and that sort of thing. But golly, guys, doesn't he sound just like him? You know, that gravelly
they almost
voice.
look alike.
And
Yeah.
yes, yeah, I agree with that. And Coach Stallings, I'll say this too about Coach Stallings. Coach Stallings has a harder edge than, and maybe that comes off in the wrong way. I don't mean that Coach Stallings is an unpleasant character. He's as gracious and as kind as he can be. Rather, what I mean by that is that Coach Stallings is a no-nonsense guy. He is used to being obeyed. And he's a guy who, when he's made a decision to get something done a particular way, I picture him exactly like Bryant, as a guy who's used to getting it done. You know, he was telling me stories which I thought were so funny about the ringer he put guys through who wanted to date his daughters. He told them they had to come and work at that ranch. And they had to come in, and he said, I would tell them, don't even begin to think about starting work after it's light, and don't even begin to think about quitting work before it's dark.
Oh wow! Well, you know what? To me, I think Coach Stallings and Coach Bear Bryant look so much alike. Y'all can now kill that narrative that all black people look alike, because
you just have to put the houndstooth hat on him, and he might.
They look exactly alike. That's all Coach Stallings need was a houndstooth hat, and people would swear that Bear Bryant had been resurrected. I'm telling you, they look just alike. They look alike.
You know, I can see that.
Yeah. And not Stephen Smith can't, because I'm sure your glasses are like a lot more expensive, so you can see it, but he can't. Stephen can't see it at all. I can see it.
He does have the NIL with lens crafters, so he's got the top of the line. Of course, Larry, one of the most heartbreaking moments for Alabama fans was when Gene Stallings decided to step down. Did he ever talk about, had he stayed on, what he would have expected, or what do you think the program would have looked like had he decided to stay on a few more years?
Hey, excuse me, but before you answer that question, can I correct you on something, Justin?
Of course.
The most heartbreaking thing that I've seen in my lifetime that Alabama fans have gone through is when Coach Bryant died. When I tell you the whole Tuscaloosa shut down. I mean, it's just real talk. I mean, school had taken out. I couldn't go to special ed trailer. None of that. All of us were home.
The short bus wasn't running, huh?
That had to be sir, do you remember that when the day that Paul?
You are so right. I was just thinking as you were speaking that it's a moment. It's one of those few moments in life. I remember exactly where I was. I was in the weight room. It was my freshman year of high school football. Seventh period of the day. I was in the weight room and along with some other guys and one of the parents who kind of hung around. You know, you've always got those guys, those jock sniffers. You know, kind of hang around the football program. Who came in and said that Bear Bryant had died, and we all chuckled because we thought it was a joke.
Yep.
We were like, yeah, whatever.
Yep.
And he said, because he was a guy that you somehow in your own mind you didn't think the guy was ever going to die. He just seemed immortal. And so no, I remember that very vividly.
I remember where I was. I was in the third desk in my special ed class. Because see, in special ed, you don't change classes, you change desks. So I went from the first desk to the third desk. I remember that. Never mind, y'all judging me. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. This is why I'm leaving this podcast.
Only you.
No, I'm just saying when the bell rings, you don't change classes, you change desks. Like we fooling somebody, and people like, Steve, we see you. So yeah, that's the whole city of Tuscaloosa shut down. It really did. It shut down. And I
believe that.
And it shut down again when they had his funeral, because they had his funeral in downtown Tuscaloosa. And then everything shut down.
That funeral was like a state funeral. It was like Reagan had died. I mean, it was incredible. I remember the images of that.
Yep.
Wow. But yeah, did Coach Stallings talk about that moment when he decided to step down? And if he stayed on, where do you think the program would have been had he stayed on a few years more?
Well, let me. While we're talking about Bryant, let me say this. One of the things that really left a deep impression on me is, Coach Stallings would tell some funny stories about Coach Bryant, but his love of that man, his respect of that man, came through. And here's a little funny thing. We're on now again, we're in like a golf cart out in the middle of a pasture. And I said to him, was Coach Bryant a good golfer? And this is what he did. I'm not kidding. There's no one around. And he goes, he was terrible. It was like he was afraid the ghost of Bear Bryant was going to hear him. And it's just the two of us, and he whispers it to me. He was terrible.
You know what? From the images I've gotten of Coach Bryant, I don't even see him playing golf. It seems like he didn't have time to do anything but coach football. It just seems like he didn't care about anything else but football, And honestly, Coach Saban kind of fits that mold as well. Coach Saban, I mean, you meet him, he's the nicest guy in the world, but when it comes to football, nothing else matters. He just comes across that way.
Yeah.
Well, Justin, to answer your question, I don't know. These guys would probably be able to answer the question much better than I could as to what the program would look like had he stayed. But I know there was no love lost between him and Bob Botgrath.
Oh yeah.
Who kind of forced him out. And I know that he didn't want to leave that way. And listen, just speaking as Joe fan, who loves Coach Stallings, my own personal interactions with him, his kindness to my family, I think he deserved better than that too. And Coach me as you described it very well, a legendary figure, but he's more than that. He's more than just a good football coach. Brian Kelly's a good football coach, but Gene Stallings is a guy who just emanates, something more. He's a great man. I just have immense respect for the kind of person that Gene Stallings is, and that's whether he had been a football coach or he had chosen to be, a farmer, a rancher. I would probably feel the same way about him if I ever met him. He's a guy that when you meet him, you just come away feeling like, wow, I'm going to do what that guy tells me to do.
So he got forced out? I didn't know that.
Yeah, that was the talk. Yeah.
I think he felt like
they forced him out. You know what I think we should do? We should storm the stadium just like they stormed the nation's capital. I think we should do that.
The Bastille.
Climb the stadium. Now, I don't think Marvin will make it with his knees right now, but I feel like we should.
Well, there is an elevator though, so we can.
Well, that you had that one.
Okay. Right.
Well, we got to keep Bo from breaking another leg.
Right.
Oh wow!
Stephen F. Smith said he got cotton candy for ankles.
Hey man.
Hey, Marvin, keep on.
Hey man. Let's not do this in front of company. Don't do that.
We gotta give him the full picture, though, man. We can't be politically correct all the time. Wait,
Yes,
we
you're
never
right.
are.
So we're pretty soon we're gonna give you the full picture. So pretty soon, Justin's gonna start cursing like a bat out of hell. So go ahead. Yeah,
Absolutely.
he's gonna get butt naked and start cursing. So just stick around.
I'm gonna pull Antonio Brown.
Yes, stick around. And the reason Marvin is holding his camera still because he don't have on any bottoms, but it's okay. It's okay.
I'll let you have that one.
Man, he usually fights back, Steve. What's going on, Marvin?
Hold on.
We need to talk.
So, Marvin, what does a DHS mean on the shirt?
I was going to ask the same thing.
Demopolis High School, where he really went.
Lord have mercy. Not the
Really?
Oh my
Stand for
goodness.
don't hate Steve.
I want to hear some more of these Coach Stallings stories because I didn't know he was forced out. I just thought that. I mean, why would you force him out? I don't get that. I don't. Because he had the program trending up. So why would you force him out? I don't get that.
I can't answer that. I will
Yes,
simply
you can.
say I don't want to.
Yes, you can.
speak
You
out.
white. You can answer it. Yeah, you can. You know some stuff. Come on.
I don't want to speak out of school here, but I'll simply say that I don't think he felt like he left the way he wanted to.
Okay.
And as for what the program would be like, I don't know about his offenses, but he'd have continued to have some pretty ferocious defenses. That's for sure. Coach Stallings is if you ever get the chance to get him on your show or to meet him, he's a great storyteller, and he has a lot of good ones, not just related to Alabama football, but college football. His time in the pros, he has some wonderful stories. And here's one that I thoroughly enjoyed. I wish I could remember the team they were playing, but he said, we're on Monday Night Football. I'm the head coach of the Cardinals. And in the fourth quarter, we have a chance to win the game, and we miss a chip shot field goal. And he said that my daughter comes home from school the next day and says, Daddy, the kids at school were saying you used a curse word on TV. And, that they could, you remember how you just see his head going up and down, on the sideline when he was going up and down, didn't even wear a headset. You just see Coach Stallings, really upset. Well, he said, I denied it. And I said, I did not. I did not use any kind of curse word. And then he said, I thought for a minute, and I said, wait, hold on just a second. When did they say that I used a curse word? And she said, it was at the end of the game, when I think you missed that field goal. He goes, oh, well, I might have, right?
Steve, do you ever get asked that question by your kids?
What? Do I curse?
Yeah.
No, because I ask them what are the latest curse words that come out. So I can get them. Hey, so listen, so he was saying that if we're fortunate enough to get Coach Stallings on the show, hey, so Justin, you got his AOL or Hotmail account? Anything?
I got his MySpace. I don't know if it's still active though.
Oh my God. He said, Coach Stallings, you listening or watching this? I didn't say it. I don't want to get cursed out. He said, Coach Stallings got a Black Planet account.
You are done.
Coach Stallings on Black Planet. Okay.
No, we've talked about how Coach Stallings has been synonymous with great names like, of course, Coach Bryant, Joe Namath, but Tom Landry is another guy. A world champion coach of the Dallas Cowboys, historic coach. You said you had a story that Coach Stallings told you about him. Can you share that with us?
Yeah, he shared several, but this one really stuck with me. Of course, John Mark Stallings, coach, and Ruth Stallings, son who had Down syndrome. He said that John Mark was of course a big Alabama fan, and he was a big Dallas Cowboy fan, and really wanted to meet Coach Landry. And he said, so I'm coaching up John Mark so that John Mark will know what to say when he meets him. And he said, so we're practicing. He said, no one called Tom Landry Tom. Everyone called him Coach or Coach Landry. And he said, so I'm at home, we're practicing. I'm saying, John Mark, I'm going to say to you, John Mark, this is Coach Landry. Coach Landry, this is John Mark. And you're going to extend your hand and say, nice to meet you, Coach Landry. And he said, so we practice it again and again. And he said, and John Mark does it perfect every time. He said, so the big day comes, it's after a game. And I take John Mark into the locker room to meet Coach Landry. Coach Landry knows I'm bringing him in, and he's prepared to meet him. And he said, so I walk him in and I say, Coach Landry, this is John Mark. John Mark, this is Coach Landry. And he said, John Mark extends his hand and said, how you doing, Tom?
Oh,
That's awesome.
And he said it's one of the rare moments. He said that I saw Coach Landry give a big smile. He said he knew that no disrespect was intended.
That's great. I think he gave us an idea there, Marvin. I think we need to coach Steve before the shows about what to say and what not to say. You think
Good luck with that.
In practice.
Now, Larry, I have to ask you this: Did Coach Landry have the hat on or off when John Mark did that?
I can't picture Tom Landry. Of course, Tom Landry, did he wear his hat inside the old Dallas Stadium, the old dome? Did he wear it inside? Bryant wouldn't wear his inside. Was Landry like that? I can't remember.
I think he was in some games, wasn't he?
Yeah. Based on all the film I've seen, he was wearing it. But yeah. Well, I have to ask Bo, coming from your standpoint, is the past when you were there still celebrated as much as it was before you got there? Are these guys like Coach Stallings and some of the greats we've had on here recently, like Jeremiah Castile, EJ Jr., are you guys taught about what they did before you, or is that something that's becoming more lost these days?
I'm Coach Saban. He's pretty good at reinforcing it to him and letting him know where it started and how it was built. From then and all the way up to when Julio first came in, and what the standard was, and the expectation that we had were very high. So you had to live up to the expectation for it. So, but yeah, Coach Saban did a really good job on reinforcing the legends that was there before him and what it all meant to the program and what these guys meant to the program. And yeah, he did a pretty good job at it. So I'm pretty sure that these guys know Gene Stallings and Joe Namath and all these, because I'm from Alabama, so we grew up knowing that already, So it was kind of easy for us, but for the guys that from Florida and California, you gotta really tell them the history about it. Like, down south football is way different from out west, because we take football very serious. It ain't all about just winning. It's more than just winning, like we make history here. So Coach Saban do a good job at that though.
Did he have to use flashcards, Bo, for some of them though?
He has some of them in the remedial class, Stephen.
You know what?
Hey, man, we have very smart guys, man. We have very smart guys.
Stephen, I'll just say that when you were sitting in the third desk, I was in the fourth. You just didn't notice me.
Because Jimmy, no, I wouldn't have noticed you. I wouldn't have noticed you. Because my helmet was too heavy. My helmet was too heavy. I couldn't turn like that. So I just straight ahead.
Saying you turn, you lost balance and fell out your chair, huh?
Yeah, y'all were talking about Coach Stallings and Joe Namath. I would have loved to hang out with Joe Namath. I bet he had so many women in the moon wings. I just know he did. Joe Namath? Oh my God. Yes, me and Broadway Joe. He would have had the real mink. I would have had the fake one, but he would have been riding. I bet how old is Joe Namath now? About 100 and what?
150.
Is he 80 yet? I think he's 80 or so, isn't he?
Oh man, I bet he still.
Maybe somebody
got all the women too.
Can Google that.
Oh no, I don't
He's
think anybody
78.
can Google. Huh?
78.
And still going strong. I can see him now. Me and him riding down University Boulevard with nothing but fur coats on, with a pocket full of blue pills. I'm telling you, man. We would have been something. Oh my God. Marvin, you remember the blue pills, the ones you take,
Again, I'll let you have that one today.
I'm so happy on our show, sir.
That'd be an interesting ESPN 30 for 30, Steve.
I know, man. Me and Joe.
You and Joe.
And the blue pills.
And the blue pills.
Hey. Who would the movie be? Who would the 30 for 30 be directed by?
I don't know, man.
Quentin Tarantino.
No, it'll probably be directed by you because we don't want you to see nothing. We don't want you to see nothing. It'll be directed by you.
One of the things I do have to ask you about, we talk about this pretty regularly each week because
don't
it's
ask
brought
him
up.
about his love life. He's gonna ask you about your love life, sir. I don't want to know this.
Well, on that note, we'll move into our closing segment.
Go ahead. You got to ask me what.
Well, I wanted to ask your thoughts on the NIL and the transfer portal. We talk about it pretty regularly on here. And as someone as educated as you and as much research as you do on various things, I'm curious to hear what your thoughts are on it.
I hate it.
Well, it's a new world, isn't it? And I have a feeling that we're not, at the middle or the end. I think we're somewhere near still at the very beginning of what this is going to look like. I mean, I think this is going to take years for this to shake out. And does anybody even yet really know what the boundaries are on all this? I mean,
Nope.
What is permissible and what isn't? Could I, for instance, sponsor, a Bo Scarborough, to go play at a Bama? I think this is a very interesting time. I do believe that players deserve to market their skills and certainly market their names. I think it's criminal that
They're saying this for 30 years.
A video game. Yes, I think it's criminal for, let's say, a video game to be able to use, let's say, Bo Scaroborough's name, but not have to compensate Bo Scarborough for the fact. I think the NCAA has been running, really kind of a monopoly for a very long time, and I'm glad to see players having the opportunity to market themselves. That said, I think many of them are going to discover that they're not nearly as marketable as they were, and that this road goes in both directions. I mean, in other words, once you're being paid, you're an employee. And once you're an employee, you're fireable. That I'm interested to see what that play is going to look like in an age of scholarships. So whereas in past a player might get a scholarship and let's say he doesn't pan out, he's not that good, but he's able to maintain that scholarship and go all the way through and get an education. In the age of NIL, what is that going to look like when you don't produce? We've hired Spencer Rattler to be our name for our chicken restaurants, and you're benched in favor of someone else, and we've paid you all this money, and you're not delivering for us in the world in which I live, and in the world I'm sure in which you live. If I don't produce, I don't get paid. So I think it's going to be interesting to see what this looks like in 2, 3, 5, 10 years from now.
It's interesting that you mentioned Spencer Rattler, but I don't appreciate that because you should have mentioned somebody closer to home that's been messing up, like Jaleel Billingsley. But
but did he have an NIL deal?
Huh?
But did he have an NIL deal?
I don't know, but he need to do something with somebody else. Be glad he gone.
See, man, didn't the quarterback?
I mentioned Spencer Rattler because Spencer Rattler was near the top of NIL money.
He was
at the beginning of the season, and whoever was investing in him did not get their monetary return.
Yeah, I know.
Now, didn't Dr. Pepper invest in the Clemson quarterback?
Yes, they did.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
And Bojangles did too.
Oh wow. Terrible.
That backfired because if Bojangles invested in him and that boy went in there eating all that damn chicken and got fat, they couldn't throw it and throwing interceptions, and then that's Bojangles' fault.
Let me ask you guys a question.
Let me ask a question. Do you think that they can give NIL deals to fans? Because I'm a real big fan of Alabama, and I be right there on the 50-yard line all the time. So I was just wondering if I can, just get one just doing this, or
Well, now you're just talking simple sponsorships, and the answer to that is yes, they can.
My next game, I promise you, they ain't give me no attention. I was gonna show up naked. I don't care. Somebody was gonna give me something.
He's gonna have brand names all over his body.
Let me ask you guys a question.
Like a NASCAR.
I'm to see what you guys think on this. This is something I'm not hearing anybody talk about, and maybe there's a very good reason they're not. But it seems to me that college football and college basketball, college sports in general, are a place where small market teams, in other words, not New York, LA, Chicago, can compete. So that towns like Tuscaloosa, Alabama, and Oxford, Mississippi, and Athens, Georgia, and Lincoln, Nebraska, they have something that their states with smaller populations can be very, very proud of in their football teams, their basketball teams, this kind of thing. It seems to me that NIL opens the door to the possibility that college sports goes the way of professional sports in this regard, that all of the big teams that are winning the championships swing to big, just as we see, in professional sports. In other words, will a Tuscaloosa or a Knoxville be able to compete with an LA if LA decides to really put big money behind Lincoln Riley and USC, or You know, if Chicago, let's say, decides to put big money behind Northwestern, God forbid, or the University of Illinois or something, or let's say Notre Dame, which is just outside of Chicago. In other words, you know, if Dr. Dre and Jay-Z and
he being racist.
Coca-Cola
He
and
being
some of these celebrities. What's that?
He being racist. Here we go. I knew it was coming. No. Look, I think that it wouldn't affect Alabama either way because people want to be Alabama. Alabama.
They want to be legends.
So with the right. So the thing is, you know, Bama is already set. No matter if they're in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, or Greene County or wherever, the University of Alabama is set, and people want to be there. And the brand is so strong, no matter what they did out in LA, whatever. The thing is, the gateway to the NFL is Alabama. It's plain and simple.
Yeah.
So kids are going to come there anyway. You know what I'm saying? That's why the kid from Georgia left Georgia, because Alabama is the gateway. So I mean, it's a lot of people trying to go to Alabama right now. We don't have them. We don't have the room, but you know where the kids.
Oh, we can make room, baby. We can make room.
Right.
We got enough room for everybody.
And see, the thing is, you got to understand these big businesses. They are giving NIL deals to individuals. So if those individuals go to this certain school, then there it is. And all of them are coming to Bama, or trying to anyway. Make sense?
Oh, absolutely. Marvin, care to weigh in on that?
That answers my question.
Yeah.
Steve hit the nail on the head.
So Alabama is the standard, brother. Where do you live? Where do you live, sir?
I'm in Birmingham.
Okay, you're in Birmingham. All right. I was about to say, if you was in another state, we was gonna get you off of here.
That's awesome.
Guys, I've just returned from Cuba about 3 days ago, and I tell you what, they need a lot of things down there, food primarily, but after that, they need some Alabama football.
You mean Cuba, like Cuba, Alabama, or what are we talking about?
I'm talking about, you know, I don't know that I've actually been in Cuba, Alabama, but I'm talking about the island that is 90 miles off of the Florida coast.
Did you do a show there one time, Steve?
No, never. I got stranded there one time. I got stranded in Cuba one time. Real talk. I missed my flight, and my layover was in Cuba, and the layover was like a whole day. So I was in the Cuban airport, and I was afraid to leave. I was gonna stay right there in that seat. So,
well, I've actually been to Cuba, Alabama a few times. There's nothing there. Nothing there. There's literally a West Rock steel plant. That's it.
That's internationally known.
Well, they do have good cigars. Do you guys smoke cigars?
You mean in Cuba, Alabama? I've never seen no cigars in Cuba, Alabama. All I see is woods. No, Marvin, you smoke cigars, don't you?
No, sir.
Marvin, you're trying to act like
you ought to every third Saturday of October.
Well, Bo did for an entire episode after we beat Tennessee.
Yeah, I smoke cigars.
I mean, all my games are still in the plastic.
Hey, man, I tried it. I remember after a show in Memphis, Tennessee, a guy gave me a cigar, and I thought that it was just cool to smoke like that, just smoke it. But I didn't know anything about cigars. And they say the darker the cigar, the stronger it is, right? Well, I'm smoking it like
generally speaking, that's true. It means the leaf came off of the top of the stalk. But I will tell you this, Bo, or any of you, if you're ever in Birmingham, I will give you a good premium Cuban cigar that you cannot get in this country, and they're strong, but they're also
hey Bo, don't y'all know he's trying to kill us. He's trying to kill us, y'all. I
just require that you smoke it on the show so we can all watch you turn green.
Yes.
Marvin, Steven, and Bo. Listen, this is what they trying to do. Justin is in on this. They're gonna give us some cigars laced, and then next thing is gonna be their show. They're trying to get rid of us. They're trying to make us. They're trying to set us up. But you know what?
Hey guys, I'm just trying to be generous.
Hey, I'll be in Birmingham at the start in April. So yes, I want you to come to the show, and you give me a cigar, and I got a blunt. Look, so I'm gonna give you a blunt. Give me a cigar, I'm gonna let you hit this blunt.
Yeah, I'll tell you what. You give me a ticket, and I will come to see you, and I will bring a Cuban cigar just for you. You can keep the blunt, but I'll give you the cigar.
You never got offered that on the BBC network, have you?
Nah, never.
No, I never did, and in fact, they never offered me anything. So I'll take at least the kind offer of a blunt versus an effort to ambush me on live television.
Well, as we go into the closing segment of our show, if you would, Larry, tell us about your book, Around the World in More Than 80 Days, and then also touch on the Fixed Point Foundation.
Yeah, I'm a writer for a living, guys. I'm a freelance writer, and that means I write for everybody who's willing to publish me, and that mostly means these days I house everything. This interview, in fact, we'll put on our website, Larry Alex Taunton. That's TAUNTON.com, LarryAlexTaunton.com. And I decided what I would do, fellas, is these days people are accustomed to Zoom meetings. They're accustomed to being on virtual reality of a sort. And I decided that with so much controversy about this country, whether or not this is a good country or a bad country or a terrible country or a great country, that I would take people on a journey around the world. And so I went to 35 countries, and I'm riding elephants in Thailand. I rappelled off the Great Wall of China. I shot AK-47s with old Viet Cong in Vietnam. I had to be hidden from Muslim extremists in Africa. I went on safari in South Africa. You name it, I did it. But at the same time, I was talking to people about what their impressions were about America. And I was comparing these countries to the United States to give people a flavor for what the rest of the world is like. Most Americans have never left this country. And so when people tell them that this is an awful place to live, I want to say, hold on just a second, to quote a fella earlier in this show who said, there's nothing in Cuba. Well, let me tell you, most of the world is not anywhere you want to live. This is the greatest country on earth where we have the opportunity to engage in fun conversation like this freely, where we get to enjoy things like Alabama football and sweet tea and barbecue and capitalism and NIL and a great many more wonderful things. And most of the people around the world, their desire is to come to this country. They want to come here. They want to be here because they live under oppression and they lack freedom. They lack opportunity. Many times they lack simple, basic things like food, clean water, clothing. So that's what the book is about.
That's what's up. That's what's up.
That's awesome.
You know what? I want a copy of this book. As a matter of fact, I want to get 3 copies for me, Marvin, and Steven, because while we reading it on this plane to Africa, and yeah, because we moving. We just decided. Marvin already left. We went to Africa. He on his way to Africa. So yeah. But yeah, I'm interested in reading that book. And you're absolutely right because I've traveled abroad, and there's no place like the United States. We got it really good over here. For people to be complaining, we really have it good over here. I'm not gonna lie to you, we got it good. But versus some of the places I've seen, I mean, because I've been to like Norfolk, Greensboro, Demopolis. It's terrible.
Demopolis.
It's terrible. It's terrible. Those people are suffering.
And lastly, tell us about the Fixed Point Foundation.
Yeah, Fixed Point. It's a nonprofit organization. We engage on the big issues of the culture. So, the broader culture, guys, people can't engage the way we are on this show. Meaning, you were just asking me about, say, BBC or CNN or something like that. There used to be a time where you could go on programs like that and you could disagree with me and I could disagree with you and we could have a civil conversation. These days, it's a shout fest. It's an effort to try to do you harm. And this is a very unhealthy thing that's happening in our culture because people are no longer able, it seems to me, to be able to discuss substantive things in a civilized manner. So Fixed Point Foundation, we try to create the format for those kinds of things. So we've debated a lot of hot topic issues, but we've done it in a very civil way, treating people who disagree with us, with respect. And because we believe that all human beings are made in the image of God and are worthy of being treated with respect. So that's what we're about.
Awesome. Good deal. Before we let you go, how can folks find you on your social media platforms if they want to talk about this or any of your books and just engage in a healthy discussion like you had today?
Sure. Yeah, you can find me at Twitter, Larry Taunton on Twitter, or you can go to my website at Larry Alex Taunton. That's TAUNTON, LarryAlexTaunton.com. And guys, I'm always ready to talk football because it's such a pleasant thing to discuss. I love the sport. I follow it every Saturday. We gather for football at my house and we enjoy it. Doesn't matter who's playing. We're watching it. We're there. And I'm certainly a fan of a couple of guys on your show here, Bo and Marvin. Guys, you guys are football legends. It's a real pleasure for me to meet you, if only virtually. And it was a great time. It was fun, guys. Thank you for having me.
Yes, sir.
Man.
Yes,
Our
sir.
pleasure.
Thank you.
Whoa, hold on. Whoa. You said Bo and Marvin, you didn't say well, never mind. Don't even worry about it. You see how I started following you. See, well, you see that unfollow. Now I'm sick of this.
Hey, yeah, but you're the guy that I'm going to be giving a cigar to and 3 copies of my book in exchange for that blunt.
Well, you know what, man? I tell you what, I'll go back to the website and I just log off Pornhub. Yeah. I'm back on your site.
Yeah. Well, on that note, we'll close this down. Great show, fellas. Thank you again, Larry. We appreciate you putting up with us.
Man.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Larry.
Roll Tide, guys.
Roll Tide.
A lot of fun, guys.